Welcome to another episode of The Profitable Creative, the only place on the interwebs where you will learn how to turn your passion into profit. I am your host, Christian Brim. Joining me today is David Griffiths of Content Creating Academy. Sorry about that, David. Before we get into it, I want to give out a shout to our one listener in Lawrence, Kansas. Never been to Lawrence. Heard it's a beautiful place, but thank you for listening. David, tell us about your journey, how you got here, and Creating Academy. I'm going to get it eventually.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. Um, I love people and I love making an impact with people.
Yes.
And so from the early years, I guess I was content creating as a songwriter.
Oh, okay.
But in recent years, having spent years as a minister of music and then teaching in the university level and elementary, high school, and then middle school level, I wanted to have an opportunity to do something that would allow me to enjoy my mother's twilight years and to mentor my son, who's now 20. And so content creation ended up being the vehicle for this departure.
Okay, so let me recap that real quickly. Songwriter, music minister, teacher, and then you decided to go into content creation as a business. Why did you choose that?
So, as a musician, as an independent gospel recording artist, the thing that in the early years, I would hear was, oh, you need to have an email list. You need to have a fan base. So, you need to create an email list. And then more recently, well, David, actually, what you need is not just an email list. What you want to have is a Facebook following. You need to have like a Facebook page. And in fact, you need to be on all the social media platforms.
Right.
So I said, okay. And for 13 years, I was on YouTube and I only had a little over 100 followers.
Not what you'd call a success.
I was missing something. And
yes,
today I would say what I was missing, maybe this could be helpful for some of your listeners, is I was creating content about me, kind of like self-expression, like, oh, hey, here's what I'm doing. And,
right,
here are these cool things that I'm doing.
right.
Versus me going, who are the people that I'm trying to connect with and serve? What value do I have from what it is that's authentically me that would benefit them? Oh, okay. Let me post that on a consistent basis.
And what give me an example of what that looks like.
Okay. So for example, let's say that let me use music for a second. During in the last several years, when I've become fluent at content creation, I did a season where I was experimenting with my former Instagram account. And so I said, well, okay, based upon the principles that I've learned for creating attractive short form video, make sure you have a hook at the beginning in the first 1 to 2 seconds that gets people's attention, deliver the value. Hopefully it's entertaining, it's educating in like a story format, or teach some things, and then have something as a call to action at the end. So in this format, I said, okay, well, I have a master's in vocal performance from Peabody Conservatory. I can teach people how to sing.
You have your chops.
Yeah. So I said, okay, well, let me start creating videos like that. And when I did, they started doing well. And I said, oh, okay. So because literally people can go, all right, David's going to teach me how to sing better. I know if I follow his platform, that's what I'm going to get. So if I'm interested in learning more about being a singer or how to sing better, let me follow David. And so I think there was a clear value proposition and people knew what to expect. And so they started responding both in terms of the reels, the algorithm liked what I was doing, and then I started getting more followers on that particular platform.
So then you leverage that to create the Content Creating Academy. What does Content Creating Academy do?
Well, Content Creating Academy allows me to help people to connect with the people they want to serve through social media. So I find that my sweet spot, the people who I serve most often and probably best, are people who are tech challenged,
Okay.
and then people who are a little bit more mature,
Okay.
older.
People like you and I that have gray hair.
There we go. Yeah. Because we didn't grow up using social media. Like we're not fluent with it like our children would be, or grandchildren if you have them, right?
Well, and frankly, I would add to that, maybe not comfortable. Like
Mm.
I don't really like it. It feels a lot like self promotion, like getting out there and that, I don't know, maybe it's the generation we were raised. That just didn't feel good. I'm going to sound like an old man here, but like I just don't get the whole, my kids' age and younger, where like their whole life is on social media. Like I, I don't, I guess I value my privacy too much. Like I don't know. That just feels weird to me.
Um, I, I would say that I understand both sides of the fence, and which is a unique place to be,
Yeah.
but valuable for who it is that I feel called
Yeah.
to serve. Um, yeah, I recommend for those of us who choose to explore social media, I do recommend that you have seasons where you unplug,
Mm.
because I like being good at what I do, and so I like going all in. But imagine I have over 1.5 million followers between my different platforms. I pray every day in the morning and most days in the evening, as well as put content of different kinds of value out during the day. So that could be all consuming and
Hmm.
can be stressful. Like there are things that I don't have to do now that I've already gotten some love from the algorithm, but I I choose to keep doing them periodically so that I'm up on my game when I'm training someone else on how to grow on social media.
Right.
But that can be very draining. Yeah.
Right.
So it's important. I even found last week, like it took me a while to to unplug and reground and center, because I had just gotten really wound up in a season of pushing really hard.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So is Content Creating Academy a service, or is it more of like you're providing content for people can come and teach themselves, or a combination of both? What?
It's a combination of both. What this literally Content Creating Academy would be a community where I teach people principles of what it takes to be successful using their content, and then we hold each other accountable on
Hmm.
that journey. And because I found that here are the major problems that I see on a regular basis with the people who join Content Creating Academy. They're overwhelmed,
Hmm.
right? So the idea of creating content, either because they're a perfectionist and they want it to be just right, or they're not comfortable being on camera. Um, like yourself, they may be a private person and feel this is kind of intrusive, but feel like it's a necessary evil
Right.
in the landscape today. And so, for a lot of them, the problem is getting them to press record, getting them to take the actions. So, um, part of my secret sauce is only successful when you take action. So I
True.
encourage people to do some research to figure out what's already working in your particular niche or area of interest. And then to, as you're studying this, to make some general observations of your theories, right? Like, okay,
Right.
well, I'm thinking this was really successful because of X, Y, and Z. And then to go check some other creators and other pieces of content to see if X, Y, and Z over here is also successful, and then do your own version.
Right.
And then at week intervals, look at the data. Okay, what did the best this week?
I call that, David, I call that R&D. Rip off and deploy. I find out what other people are doing and works,
Yeah.
and then yes.
Yes. Yeah. So by studying what then has worked, as you adapt your own version of what you discovered is already working in the marketplace, then you double down on what works.
Mm-hmm.
Then you start doing slight variations until you come up with your own secret sauce. But you're never going to be able to come up with the secret sauce if you're not deploying a piece of
Right.
content every day. Or, in some platforms, you can have 2 or 3 pieces of content every day. Like a platform like TikTok, which skews younger, you can put 3 to 5 pieces of content out in a day and people don't get fatigued of your presence. So in order to learn what works, you have to do the reps and then analyze and then double down on what was effective.
Are you familiar with Dennis Yu?
No.
Do you know
Dennis, you?
Dennis Yu, Blitz.
Is he with Mind Valley?
No, it's Blitz Metrics. I have to look it up. But if you look up Dennis Yu, YU is his last name. He'll show up in Google. But that's a lot of what he teaches on the advertising side of which is very similar. Which is you just throw out little pieces and let the algorithm tell you what's working rather than you trying to figure it out. But it to your point, it requires you to do it. Like you've got to put it out there so that you can get the feedback.
Absolutely. When I first started, I had a coach, and one of the things that I got a coach for TikTok. So my origin story at the beginning of the pandemic, one of my high school buddies, Jeff Vargas, who's a public speaker, he happened to just feel the need to like bring together the guys that were like stuck at home and encourage one another. So he started a Zoom chat called Dudes Chat. And so we would get together and, see how everyone was doing. And some of them, we talk sports or crypto or something, but in general, it was just to encourage each other. So the very first one of our friends, Kevin, his mother had just died. And so he asked me, "Hey, Dave, would you be willing to sing a hymn every morning on Facebook to help me get through this difficult time?" So I said yes. And what I soon discovered was Kevin would be blessed by that. Mm-hmm. But if you never met me before, you'd never discover it.
Right.
So I'd have to pay for advertising. And since I did not have an advertising budget for sharing hymns, I did some research, and Gary Vaynerchuk was someone who spoke a lot about success on social media. And he suggested that TikTok was the best place for organic growth for businesses.
Yes.
And I thought that was like for high school girls to dance,
right,
not, for business. But he had results that I didn't have. So I trusted him. I got a coach, and I laser beam focused just on that platform and did what the coach told me. And the coach said, "All right, Dave, what you need to do is you need to pick 8, 9 different subjects that you're passionate about and create content on them, and let your audience tell you what it is that they want from you."
Mm-hmm.
So I did. My first thing that went viral is I took my phone and I was at Chick-fil-A, and then I videotaped the long line of cars, and then I flipped the camera on me and I said, "What's so special about Chick-fil-A?"
Right.
And that was maybe 7 or 8 seconds, the video. And it had like 17,000 views in a short amount of time. And that was really exciting for me. And I was like, oh, wow. So maybe it's because this is relatable. And the first principle was it's easier to be successful with a short piece of content than with a longer piece of content. And so I always encourage my students to master a shorter piece of content first. Because now when you're doing 60 seconds, it's harder to keep people's attention for that long. But then after that, I started making videos like talking to myself. Like I would set it up on a stand and I would say, "Hey, wait, don't scroll. Don't quit. Don't quit. And then I would share what I wish someone would have told me 6 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so that particular video is my first video that had over 1 million views. I realized that if you're authentic and you speak to what you would have, either what you need or what you would have needed, a previous version of you, that will resonate well with people who are on the same path. And especially if you're looking to serve people who are on the path that you've just walked. And so I would encourage people to be authentic and to try different things that you're passionate about, but then speak to something that would be valuable to you 6 months ago or a year ago.
I love that. What's your favorite hymn?
My favorite hymn is
Yes.
We Have Not Known Thee. It's a little less known hymn, but
I'm not familiar with it. I'm going to go have to check it out. I'll probably find a version of you singing it somewhere. And
probably. Yeah, but I play piano hymns at least on a weekly basis. I used to do it several times a week. And, I often have people ask me for Amazing Grace, It Is Well, Great Is Thy Faithfulness.
My favorite is Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing. I don't know why. It really resonates with me.
That's a beautiful hymn.
Yes. So, and what I really like is when people like, David Crowder or others that take these ancient hymns, several hundred years old, and then modernize them. That's my favorite. So what were the challenges moving from the world of ministry and education to being an entrepreneur? What were some of the challenges you encountered?
Wow. You sure you have enough time?
We got all the time you want, David.
Man. So let me say this. I was just speaking with a mentor, friend, and business partner not long before getting on this podcast. And he told me, I think it was 3 years ago, he was like, it may have been 4 years ago. He's like, oh, Dave, like in your business, the first 18 months, you're just figuring it out. Like,
yes.
Like I was trying to make some decisions. He's like, oh, you're just going to be figuring it out for the next 18 months. Trust me. And I was like, oh, man. And he has 5-6 businesses and,
right.
And he's being successful. So obviously he knows what he's talking about, but I'm like, well, he doesn't know me.
Right. I can figure this out.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So here are some of the challenges. Challenge number 1. I did not get on social media to be a business, an entrepreneur. I went on social media to make an impact.
Mm-hmm.
And so while that's good, also it means that when I showed up to do the things that I thought would be the most beneficial. So I had a ministry mindset. And so I pray every morning online. So maybe of the 1.5 million followers that I have, maybe 1.2 or 3 of them, they look for encouraging words and to pray with me. So there may be a smaller subset that would be interested in if I were teaching people how to do social media, for example. So then how do you do something that's successful in terms of making an impact and at the same time is able to fund things? And then, oh my goodness, I haven't counted recently, but I used to count all the fake accounts pretending to be me. I'd have 17, like between Instagram and TikTok, people pretending to be me. And this is what was killing me. They would go to people and they'd say, hi, this is David. God has told me if you will just sow a seed of $1,000, you'll receive a blessing. there were even people that were former clients of mine that gave money to different scammers, and like I was so frustrated because I felt there was
Mm-hmm.
nothing that I could do. At the time, you could get the little check mark, say on Instagram, but there were PR firms that say, "Oh yeah, for $5,000, I can help you
Right.
get the check mark." Really? So yeah, it was very frustrating to me to try to have a mindset that works for a ministry oriented thing, and then at the same time seek to make money. And it was frustrating to me because I dealt with a lot of scammers, either pretending to be me or even on the other side. Let's say if I had merch to sell, then I had people using, like other people's credit cards to order my prayer journal or the thing. And I was just like, what? Like, that didn't make sense to me. Like, why is someone scamming for something that's like spiritual in nature? I don't get it. Right.
Well, because I think it's easier. I mean, you've got the
Mm,
emotional buy-in, you've got people that are engaged, and it is unfortunate. And but what you described there, I think is I think universal for
mm,
all creative entrepreneurs, right?
mm,
They have a passion, and it's like, okay, how do I make money with it? Like I want to do this thing that I love, that impacts people, that makes a difference, but how can I do it to make a living, to provide for me and my family? And I think you nailed it, maybe unintentionally. I don't know that you meant to, but it is a mindset thing. It is shifting your mind shift, because it's not an either or, right? It's not, I can do what I'm passionate about and what I love and, be hungry, or I can do this thing that maybe I don't really want to do, but it pays the bills, right?
mm,
I think that's a false choice. I think it's just a matter of repurposing your creativity. Like,
mm,
just so how can I be creative in a way that serves someone else, but they're willing to trade dollars for me for it.
mm,
I heard one speaker say, because a lot of creatives are maybe uncomfortable with that financial dynamic. Like, I'm doing this because I love it. I don't want to get paid for it. Right. That doesn't feel right. Um, was he described it as look at dollars as thank you notes. They're notes of
mm.
appreciation. Right. And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, that resonates.
I never heard it expressed that way as thank you notes.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. One of the things that as I was reflecting in that conversation I mentioned, uh, I really enjoy being able to help the people that I can help now.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of the reason why I can is because life sucked for a couple of
Yes.
years while I went through trial and error of different approaches to doing what I'm doing, which in essence allows me to save time to people who are trying to do a similar thing. So whether it
Yes.
was learning the process of running ads or what kind of content will really work,
Right.
what platform makes sense depending on who it is that I'm trying to reach, and then uh, if I could go visit David 4 years ago.
You're prescient. That was exactly the question I was going to ask you. What would you tell yourself?
Oh, I would say, okay, so I believe that I suffer with some ADHD,
Mm,
and so the blessing of that is I really like to dive deep on a structure that I really get into and understand, and I really want to dive deep into it. So I think it I think it allows me to be a gifted songwriter or worship leader, etc. Because um, I can see the connections between songs and that whole world. I really enjoy it and went deep in it. But new structures that I have to learn, they can be daunting. And so at the beginning of my journey, I knew the importance on paper of having an email list and
Mm-hmm.
creating a lead magnet,
Right.
and that social media is rented territory, but
Yes.
an email list you own.
Right.
But I did not prioritize that. So that's what I would do. I would go back and I would be like, David, no, you don't understand. Like, you need to master this side of the fence. In fact, if you only get 150,000 followers instead of 1.5 million, but you have a 10,000 person email list that is well aligned with the value
Yeah.
that you offer, oh, you'll be so much happier for the rest of your days. Yeah.
Yes.
So I wish that I had made that decision earlier, but part of my simplifying my life for 2025 is having one focus, and therefore building a better list and making sure that I'm being intentional at each juncture to do things that will allow me to serve at a higher level and, provide for myself and my family.
Well, it sounds a little bit like what you've created is a community, and obviously they're um, gathering around a topic, but it's deeper than that. Um, they share your values, they share your passions, and more importantly, they trust you.
Hmm.
And that puts you in a powerful seat. It could be used for good, it could be used for bad, right? Um, and but I think that the I think the world, because of all of the technological changes, are really craving that connection, that authenticity. Um, because it's to your point, the scammers, hopped on real quick, right? And to me, that just shows the the thirst, the hunger for people wanting some type of real person that connects with them.
Hmm.
And creating community, I think, is going to become more and more important. And so it's not necessarily about the metric views, right? Um, you know, Obviously that drives the number of people that get onto your email list, but it's not what necessarily has long-term value.
I think, yeah, I think you're right. Okay, when it comes to allowing people to enter your world, say through um, something that you're offering them as a lead magnet, there is a difference between people who will take something for free that you're offering and people who will spend $7 to get something that you're offering.
Yes.
So often that's used as a wedge to say these are freeple,
Yes.
people who want free things, and then here's someone who's willing to invest to get value.
Right.
And so in that example, it may be more valuable for you to figure out who the people are who are willing to invest for value and have a smaller number like that you have in a community, because then you know that a higher percentage of them would benefit and take advantage of the benefit of the higher level of value that you have to give. And so whereas at the beginning of my journey I might have just been just happy for the affirmation of the following,
Right.
but now I go, oh, this was cool. Like, you know, there was things that were really cool when we went to Jamaica. One of my mom's friends had a 63rd wedding anniversary trip, and their son lives in Montego Bay. And so my son, my mom, and I, we went on this wonderful, I'll say it was the trip of a lifetime. um, my mom wanted to show me, but also really my son, like the places that she grew up in Jamaica. And I didn't know that she grew up in Trenchtown, which is where Bob Marley grew up. I didn't know that. I'm like, oh wow, this is a cool place,
Yeah.
this is cool. Or um, she did her nurses training in Black River, and so that was a different part of Jamaica I'd never been to, and we went on a boat ride and saw crocodiles. So we had all these. There were all these stories that my mom would tell, but now we had context to
Yes.
where they actually occurred. And I'd been on trips before, but normally it's for a funeral, right? So I just go into Kingston and then stay there for a few days, do the funeral, and then go home.
Right.
But this was an opportunity to really to explore. And so while we were there, during that season, every day when I did prayers, I would wear this hoodie, like
Hmm.
not this physical one, but like I have like 8 of these or something, right? And so when I went to Jamaica, I was going through customs, and the lady was like, "What, David?" I'm like, "Who's this?" And,
Did I do something?
oh, yeah, like, hi. She's like, "I prayed with you this morning," and so that
Wow.
that was kind of cool. It
Yeah.
happened 8 different people during our couple weeks there at different places at a restaurant. The waitress was like, "I pray with you every day." So that felt really special. Like
Right.
I went my youngest child, my daughter, she lives in Atlanta, and so when I go to visit her, then there were people coming up in the hotel. "Hey, are you that guy that prays every day?" So I'm having this great experience. This is exciting. However, while it was novel and exciting, I much would rather have this community. I'm grateful for the impact that I
Right.
feel that I'm honored to make to a larger group, but it's really important for me to be able to support these lovely children that I have, for me to know who are the people that I can offer this higher level of value to. And so
Yeah.
that's
And,
what I
and
wish I knew more about when I was younger.
100%. One of the better business books I've read is Perry Marshall's 80/20 Sales and Marketing. And he talks about it's the Pareto principle, the 80/20. And he goes, I mean, he talks a lot about it and puts out a lot of content on it, but how this 80/20 ratio shows up in human behavior all over the place. And so to your example, 20% of the people that are in your mailing list, and it's not always exactly 80/20, but it's some larger percentage to a smaller percentage. 20% of them, for instance, would be willing to pay something. But what's interesting to me in learning this is that it's a fractal that keeps on going. So 20% of the 20%,
Mm.
which would be 4%, are willing to do even more with you,
Mm.
and really exploring that. And I don't I intentionally didn't use the word exploiting it because that has a negative connotation, but exploring that fractal in your customer base, to see how deep you can go. Like like there's probably a small percentage of your group that would say pay for a high ticket live event that would come to Maryland, and
Mm.
you know, so it's an interesting concept, but I've seen it be true in all instances that have to deal with people.
Mm. So 4%. I love that. Like what you're saying, I've been so first let me say I've been really working on not getting distracted by shiny objects.
It's hard. It's how we're wired. I get it.
But the Alex Hermosis of this world, one offer, one platform, one avatar, one offer, one platform. And um, also, if the sooner you're able to remove yourself from working in the business and now work on the business and have people who are executing it, and you just are
Yes.
doing sales, and but you have these other people executing it. I've also heard that at the point where you're doing the one, but you're outside, that's when you'll see the great growth occur in your business. And so I'm looking
Yes.
forward to that this year, because that's literally what I'm transitioning to. Um, I think there's a certain part of you where you get satisfaction from the fact that you know how to do several different things that are really important for the people you're serving, until you realize, oh, I could probably be serving 20 times as many people if there was a little bit more consistency in what we were delivering, and therefore it could be delivered not by me but by a team.
Yes.
Right. So
Yes.
that's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, and figuring out what you personally, what the highest value that you can contribute,
Mhm.
right? And focusing on that, and letting the other people in your organization focus on the less valuable. Not that they're not valuable, but it doesn't require you. Like, you don't have to. That's not where your genius is.
Mm.
Um, I think as we were talking, to go back to your example, I think of Christ and his, his inner circle was only 12, right?
Mm. Yeah.
And thinking about, like, okay, who are the 12 people in your community that you could really drive value for?
Mm.
Um, Not the 70, not the multitudes, right?
Yeah.
Um, that's where the real profit is. I mean, financially, I that sounds awful that I'm comparing Christ's apostles to a business model, but I mean, it's that 80-20. Like, a lot of people will hear the message, but not everybody is going to buy in, and then only a very few are going to actually become disciples,
Yeah.
right? So, I mean, that's just human nature. That's the way it works. Um,
Yeah. Very true. And I do think that, looking at the principles, not only for how we live our lives, but also for how Jesus organized
mhm.
his community. I think there's a lot of wisdom. Some people also look at what Solomon did as another model as well, but I think that is very helpful for people in the business space to look at those principles, to lead as Jesus led, um, and also to think about how you are. Well, I guess Moses, and Solomon and Jesus, looking at structures of how they led people, how to
Right.
organize that leading, how to mentor people. I think that's very valuable, and it's sometimes we think of business as a secular enterprise, but I think that, um, it is very spiritual, and I would hope. I honestly feel as though the more that I get into actually being a businessman and interacting with other business people, I realize that in order to be successful in business, the highest level, you need to be a person of integrity. And the character, I hate saying it, but what's not working seemingly for me is working on me to be the me that I need to be for
Hmm.
that next level of responsibility. So I find that my walk, my faith walk, my relationship with God grows exponentially, even as a result of me choosing this path of entrepreneurship, and that people wouldn't view it in such a negative light, if they understood the principles of character that it takes to be the person that people can trust, to
To
deliver
be a
God's
leader,
word.
yeah. I mean, that takes a lot of personal growth. I mean, even if you have natural skills, or people, you have one of those personalities that people turn to you for leadership, doesn't mean that you know how to be a leader. you have to grow into that. And like you said, it starts with yourself, and it's a difficult journey. Like, confronting the things about yourself that need to change, and it's uncomfortable. And most people pass. They're like, I don't want to do that work.
Yeah. It's not for the faint of heart.
No, no, sir, it's not. David, how do people find out more about Content Creating Academy?
Well, that's a very good question. One easy way is to send me an email, david@contentcreatingacademy.com, and I'd love to answer questions you might have. And they can visit contentcreatingacademy.com, the website as well.
Perfect. Go ahead.
I'm on social media, so if you want to follow me on social media.
Of course you are.
I spend more time on Instagram, I would say, than Instagram and Facebook, just by virtue of habit. So on Facebook, you can find me at Orphan Helper, or on Instagram at David the Digital Creator.
I love it. Thank you very much for your insights and your experience share. I appreciate it. Listeners, if you like what you heard, please subscribe to the podcast, share the podcast, rate the podcast. If you don't like what you heard, let me know, and I'll see if I can find a replacement for myself. We'll bring David back and have somebody else interview him. Until then, ta-ta for now.